sweet baby boys. I know that today you don't want to speak to me, have a relationship with me, or you may think you hate me, and that's okay. I will never be angry at you for your feelings. When the day comes that you're ready, I will be here for you, waiting for you, and loving you. I can beat myself up all day about how I could have been a better person, or made better personal choices. And I can understand and accept you boys being upset about those things. But murder? No, absolutely not. I will not accept that. And I will not be blamed for something I did not do. I will appeal and fight these charges, no matter how long it takes.
I'm not breathing. She's cold. I need you to take a deep breath. What's going on? My husband. She's not my doctor. I need you to confirm it for me. Is he not breathing?
What happened today?
Grossman passed away unexpectedly last year, so it's March 4th was a 1-year anniversary for us, and he was 39. It completely took us all by shock.
Evidence will prove that Kouri Richins murdered Eric for his money and to get a fresh start at life.
It was his birthday. The judge read the sentence out loud. Life, without parole. And in the back of that courtroom, 3 little boys who had already lost their father now had to lose their mother too. What she did to this family is almost impossible to explain. Almost. While investigators were quietly building a murder case against her, Kouri Richins was doing interviews on morning television, talking about grief, talking about loss. She had even written a children's book about it. The problem? She was the one who caused it. She called 911 just after midnight, said she found her husband cold, not breathing. The operator talked her through it. What nobody knew yet, not the operator, not the paramedics, not even the naders, was that this was not the first time she had tried. May 13, 2026, Park City, Utah, courtroom of Judge Richard Mrazek. The date matters, not because of what happened in that room, but because of whose birthday it was. Because the man being remembered in those proceedings, the man at the center of this entire case, would have turned 44 years old that morning. Eric Richins never made it to 44, and the woman who ensured he never would, his wife, Kouri Richins, sat in that courtroom in a neon green t-shirt, hands cuffed in front of her, while the judge delivered his verdict on how she would spend the rest of her life. Life in prison, no possibility of parole, ever. The judge did not hesitate. He said, and I want you to hear this clearly, a person convicted of those things is simply too dangerous to ever be free. Those words, simply too dangerous to ever be free, were not about a serial killer. They were not about someone with a history of violence. They were about a 35-year-old Utah mother of 3, a woman who had appeared on morning television just 2 years earlier, a woman who had written a children's book about loss and grief and healing, a book, as it turned out, about the very man she had been convicted of killing. Before we go any further, if you are new here, subscribe and hit the notification bell, because this is the kind of case that changes the moment you think you understand it. This is the story of Eric and Kouri Richins, and nothing about it is what it appears to be. Before we talk about how Eric Richins died, you need to know who he was, because this case is ultimately about him, and the people who loved him deserve that. Eric Richins, 39 years old at the time of his death, was a Utah native in every sense. He ran C&E Stone Masonry, a business he built with his own hands. He was an outdoorsman, the kind of man who knew every trail near Park City and spent his weekends with his 3 young sons. His obituary described him as a devoted husband and a father who strived every day to be the best version of himself. The Richins family had deep roots in Utah, multi-generational ranching land, livestock, real estate holdings. Eric came from a family that had built something real over many decades. He was also, by all accounts, a trusting man, and that trust, as we will see, would be used against him. Eric met Kouri Darden at a Home Depot. He was a regular customer. He needed supplies for his masonry work. She was a cashier. According to people who knew them, it was obvious from his very first visit that Eric was interested. A coworker eventually told him to stop stalling and just talk to her. He did. They were inseparable from that point on. In 2013, Kouri Darden became Kouri Richins. Before the wedding, the couple signed a prenuptial agreement. It outlined what each party would own in the event of a divorce, and it included a specific clause. Certain assets would transfer to Kouri if Eric died while they were married. Keep that clause in mind. It becomes the pivot on which this entire case turns. From the outside, their life looked extraordinary. Nice homes, a growing real estate portfolio, family photos that could have come off a lifestyle magazine cover, 3 boys, mountain views. But inside that picture, something was already broken. By 2015, court records show Kouri had begun accumulating debt through a series of house-flipping ventures that were failing. She was taking money from Eric's business accounts, opening credit lines he didn't know about, spending far beyond what the couple could sustain. The scale of it was significant. We are not talking about overspending on groceries. Prosecutors documented that Kouri had buried herself in millions of dollars in debt. Her bank account had a negative balance. She was being actively sued by creditors. Court documents show she owed lenders over $1.8 million and was sinking deeper. In September 2020, Eric finally discovered the full scope of it. He found that Kouri had secretly taken out a $250,000 fraudulent home equity line of credit, had been using his business accounts without authorization, and had charged thousands to his personal credit cards. His response was immediate and decisive. Within weeks, he consulted a divorce attorney, then an estate planning attorney, and then he did something that would prove critical. He created the Eric Richins Living Trust. He transferred his home, his business interest, and his other key assets into that trust, and he named his sister, Kouri Richins Benson, as the trustee, with all proceeds designated for his 3 sons, not for Kouri. His attorney noted in writing that Eric wanted to protect himself from recently discovered and ongoing abuse and misuse of his finances, and to ensure that Kouri would never control his property after his death. Here is the critical detail. Kouri believed that if Eric died, the prenuptial agreement would give her control of his estate, roughly $5 million in total assets, between life insurance policies and his share of the business. What she did not know, what she never discovered, is that by placing his assets into a living trust, Eric had effectively removed them from the terms of the prenup entirely. The trust superseded it. She was planning to inherit $5 million that was never hers to claim. She did not know. Let that settle for a moment, because everything that happens next, every decision Kouri Richins made was built on a financial calculation that was already wrong before she acted on it. By 2020, Kouri Richins was not just drowning financially, she was also, according to testimony at her trial, involved in a romantic relationship with another man. His name is Robert Josh Grossman. He was an Iraq war veteran who had answered a job posting for Kouri's house flipping operation in South Carolina back in 2017. By 2020, prosecutors say the relationship had turned personal. Grossman relocated to Utah, living in some of the homes Kouri was flipping, and the two built what he described in court as a genuine romantic connection. During the trial, prosecutors presented text messages between Kouri and Grossman. One, sent just 12 days before Eric Richins died, read, "She wanted a future together. She said that if Eric could just go away and Grossman could just be there, life would be perfect." Those are not the words of someone looking for a legal separation. Grossman himself testified with evident emotion. He held back tears as pages of those messages were displayed in court. He said he believed she loved him. He also told the court about a conversation they had approximately 2 weeks after Eric's death when Kouri asked him whether he had ever killed anyone. She knew he had served in combat. He said he thought she was deflecting, trying to shift the weight of the conversation away from herself. The prosecution called Grossman the second motive. Divorcing Eric would have left Kouri without the money she needed, and possibly without custody of her children. Death, she apparently believed, was the cleaner solution. She was wrong about that too. The death of Eric Richins on March 4, 2022, was not, according to prosecutors, the first time Kouri attempted to harm him. Eric's family told investigators about an incident in 2019 during a family trip to Greece. According to a search warrant affidavit, Eric fell severely ill after Kouri handed him a drink. He was shaken enough by the experience that he called his sister from overseas and told her he believed his wife had attempted to poison him. The family had that concern documented and on record. Then came Valentine's Day, 2022. On February 14th, less than 3 weeks before his death, Eric became violently ill after eating a sandwich Kouri had prepared. He lost consciousness. His son's EpiPen and Benadryl were used to stabilize him. When he came to, his first call was to his business partner. He told him, and this is documented, that Kouri had tried to poison him again. Prosecutors later argued the sandwich had been laced with a controlled opioid. Eric survived that attempt. He did not tell police. Investigators believe he was still trying to assess the situation, still, perhaps, unable to fully accept what he was facing inside his own home. 17 days later, he was dead. Judge Mrazek, at sentencing, put it directly. Between that Valentine's Day incident and Eric's death, Kouri Richins did not change course. She doubled down.
Prosecution digital forensic analyst testified that phone receiver sensor activity showed she instead held the phone to her ear. That means it was presented that money was her motive. After 3 hours of deliberations, the jurors were ready to deliver their guilty verdict, though it was not a moment they were looking forward to.
Okay, tell me exactly what happened. Okay, I can't understand you. I need you to take a deep breath. What's going on?
I don't know. I was thinking it was my kids. I just came in the bed, did her bed, and I turned over. He's cold.
Who's cold?
My husband. He's alive.
He's not breathing? I need you to confirm it for me. Is he not breathing? Okay, can you do CPR?
No, she don't know how.
You don't know, I'm gonna tell you how. Are you willing to do CPR?
Yeah.
Okay.
Body cam footage that was retrieved on the night that Eric passed away. The house looked disturbingly ordinary. This was a family home that suddenly turned into emergency, and there were no signs of disturbance or struggle. This was just supposed to be another ordinary night for them. Except, tragically, it wasn't. Police officers moved through the property's rooms, while paramedics desperately tried to revive Eric. Meanwhile, Kouri could be seen standing nearby in emotional turmoil, and allegedly was unable to process what was happening. She told the officers that while Eric was still seemingly okay, one of her sons was having night terrors that evening, and so she left Eric in the bedroom.
What time did you guys go to bed? 9:30? Okay. And then what alerts did you to him today, right now? And he was laying in bed?
According to Kouri's own account to investigators, the evening of March 3rd was a celebration. She told police she and Eric were marking the closing of a large real estate. She said she made him a Moscow Mule in the kitchen and brought it to their bedroom. He drank it. He also took a THC gummy before bed, she said. She left to check on one of their children and fell asleep. She says she woke at approximately 3:22 in the morning and found him unresponsive. What follows is the 911 call she placed. Doubled down. I just came in. He's just cold. He's just cold. He's not breathing? No. The operator walked her through CPR instructions. The paramedics arrived. Eric Richins was pronounced dead at their home. The cause of death, determined by the medical examiner, a lethal dose of fentanyl. Not trace amounts, not a therapeutic level, 5 times what is considered a fatal quantity of the synthetic opioid concentrated in a single drink. Eric Richins had no history of opioid use. His family had never seen him take prescription painkillers recreationally. His death did not look like an accident to anyone who knew him. It did not look like one to investigators either. Summit County detectives opened the investigation immediately. Within days, several things stood out. First, the life insurance. Investigators found that Kouri had taken out 4 separate insurance policies on Eric's life, totaling nearly $2 million without his knowledge, according to prosecutors. One of those policies had been opened in the days immediately preceding the Valentine's Day incident. The timing was not lost on anyone reviewing the file. Second, the trust. When investigators began examining Eric's estate, they discovered the living trust he had created in October 2020 and that it had effectively removed Kouri from any meaningful inheritance. This raised a specific question. Did she know? The answer investigators ultimately concluded, she did not. She believed she was inheriting an estate that had already been restructured specifically to exclude her. Third, the source of the opioid. This is where the investigation took a turn that nobody in the Richins family home had anticipated. Carmen Lauber was the family's housekeeper. She also cleaned properties for Kouri's house flipping business. Investigators, in expanding their search, eventually reached Lauber. Her testimony at trial was stark. She told the court that Kouri had approached her in early 2022 and asked her to obtain controlled substances first, telling her it was for an investor. She initially purchased hydrocodone. Then Kouri asked for something stronger. Lauber recalled the phrase Kouri used. She wanted the Michael Jackson stuff, a crude reference to the powerful sedative propofol associated with the late pop star's death. When Lauber told Kouri that her contact could get fentanyl instead, Kouri's response, according to Lauber's testimony, was, "Okay, go ahead and get them." Lauber said she purchased fentanyl pills 4 separate times in early 2022 at Kouri's request, typically at a gas station in Draper, Utah, before delivering them to locations in Heber or Midway where Kouri would pick them up. Under cross-examination, defense attorneys worked hard to undermine Lauber. They pointed to her history of drug offenses, her position on probation at the time of her arrest, and the fact that she had been offered potential immunity in exchange for her cooperation. They also pointed out that no fentanyl was found in the Richins home and that Lauber's drug dealer had later signed an affidavit claiming he sold her a different opioid entirely. Lauber's response to questions about her motivation was notable. She told the court that even when investigators suggested she could receive significant legal protection in exchange for testimony against Kouri, she told them that if what happened to Eric was connected to what she had supplied, she needed to step up and take accountability. The jury heard all of it. In the weeks following Eric's death, Kouri Richins made a series of decisions that would later become exhibit material for the prosecution. The morning after Eric died, March 4, 2022, she signed the closing papers on the Midway mansion, the 20,000 square foot property she had purchased specifically to flip. The property that Eric, according to his family, had opposed entirely. He had told family members in his final days that he was not willing to invest further in that project. She signed, and then she held a party to celebrate the purchase. 3 weeks after his death, she filed a legal claim against Eric's trust, seeking the money and assets she believed the prenuptial agreement had entitled her to. She also filed a motion to remove his sister, Kouri Richins Benson, as trustee and replace her with herself. The legal actions went nowhere. The insurance claims, however, resulted in a payout of over $1 million, money she was ultimately required to repay after her conviction. In March 2023, 1 year after Eric Richins died, Kouri Richins published a children's book. She called it, "Are You With Me?" The book follows a young boy who loses his father and searches for signs of his presence in everyday moments. On the cover, an illustration of a father figure with angel wings, peeking through the clouds. The dedication page reads, "To my amazing husband and a wonderful father." She described writing it as something she did for her boys, to help them process the grief of losing their dad. She said she wanted a story she could read to them at night. She appeared on Good Things Utah, a local morning lifestyle program, and talked about loss, about healing, about how a story could help a child through unimaginable pain. The hosts were moved. The segment was warm and earnest, and at the exact moment that interview aired, at the exact moment Kouri Richins was touring morning television, as a grieving mother turned author, Summit County investigators had already spent months building a murder case against her. They were watching. The book is still available for purchase. The cover still shows Eric looking down from the clouds. His family knows what it means. His sons know what it means. On May 8, 2023, 2 months after the book's publication, Kouri Richins was arrested and charged with the murder of her husband. The trial began in February 2026 at the Summit County Courthouse in Park City. It ran for 3 weeks, 13 days of testimony, a prosecution that did not hold back, and a defense that made arguments that deserved to be taken seriously. The prosecution, led by Brad Bloodworth, told jurors from the outset that this case had a clear through line. Eric Richins was worth more to Kouri dead than alive. Bloodworth laid out the financial motive, the affair, the insurance policies, the housekeeper's testimony, and the digital evidence, including the text messages to Josh Grossman, systematically and methodically. The defense, led by attorney Wendy Lewis, raised something important. They argued that no fentanyl was found in the Richins home. They presented photos of an empty prescription pill bottle on Eric's nightstand on the night of his death. They noted that Eric had suffered from chronic back and knee pain. He had recently returned from a trip to Mexico, and that he had a documented history of using marijuana gummies for pain management. They suggested the jury consider whether Eric, a man in physical discomfort, could have obtained and taken the opioid himself. They also challenged Lauber directly, pointing out the inconsistencies in her testimony and her obvious legal incentive to cooperate. The defense called no witnesses of their own. Kouri Richins did not take the stand. For 13 days, jurors listened to law enforcement officials, forensic scientists, financial investigators, and witnesses who had known Eric and Kouri personally. They heard the 911 call. They heard the text messages. They heard Josh Grossman describe in a trembling voice the conversation where Kouri asked him whether killing someone had ever haunted him. On March 16, 2026, the jury went to deliberate. They were back in 3 hours. 3 hours. For a first-degree aggravated murder charge, Kouri Richins was found guilty on all counts: aggravated murder, attempted aggravated murder for the Valentine's Day incident, 2 counts of insurance fraud, and forgery. One juror, speaking publicly after the verdict, described how early sympathy for Kouri. She had appeared alone at the defense table, composed, almost still shifted as the evidence accumulated. The juror said that by the end, the jury reached their decision without hesitation. Another juror noted something specific about the 911 call. She said Kouri's account to the operator began not with finding Eric unresponsive, but with the drink she had made him. The juror found that sequence difficult to ignore. Sentencing was scheduled for May 13, 2026. Eric Richins' 44th birthday. Whether the date was coincidental or deliberate on the court's part has not been publicly explained, but nobody in that courtroom missed what day it was. The hearing lasted hours. Members of Eric's family delivered victim impact statements. His sister Katie Richins Benson, who had been named trustee of his estate and had spent 4 years fighting legal battles to protect his sons, stood up and described losing her brother. She described losing her job. She described suffering a miscarriage during the stress of the investigation and legal proceedings. She was crying when she spoke. While she did, Kouri Richins, visible to observers in the courtroom, was seen rolling her eyes and making faces. The 3 sons, who are now being raised by Eric's family, had their statements read aloud by therapists. The boys said they would fear for their safety if their mother were ever released. The middle son's statement said Kouri had taken everything from them. One said he wanted her imprisoned forever. Another said he missed his dad, but had no wish to see her. Then Kouri was given the opportunity to speak. She spoke for nearly 30 minutes. She addressed her sons almost exclusively. She told them she had never stopped trying to reach them. She said the verdict was wrong. She said the truth would come out. She said she planned to fight her way home to them. She told them, "Be like your dad." Judge Mrazek then delivered his sentence: life without parole, plus consecutive terms for the additional convictions, 5 years to life for the attempted murder charge, up to 5 years for forgery, 1 to 15 years on each fraud count. He said, "The bottom line is this: Kouri Richins was convicted unanimously and beyond a reasonable doubt. A person convicted of those things is simply too dangerous to ever be free. Kouri Richins will die in prison. That is the court's determination." Her attorneys have filed for an appeal. The judge granted an extended 28-day window for that filing. Her attorneys are appealing. Her sons are living with Eric's family, and somewhere, in a library or a bookstore or on an online marketplace, there is still a children's book called Are You With Me? With a dedication to an amazing husband and a wonderful father. A book written for 3 boys who will one day be old enough to search their own family history, who will one day read about the trials, the evidence, the verdict, and the sentencing, who will one day find that book and have to reconcile what it says with what they already know. Eric Richins was 39 years old. He was a stonemason, a rancher's son, a father who coached and camped and built things with his hands. His family remembered him as a man who showed up for his kids, for his community, for the people who needed him. He told his sister, from a phone in Greece, that he thought his wife was trying to harm him. He told his business partner the same thing. He documented his fears with an attorney. He restructured his entire estate to protect his boys. He did everything right. He just ran out of time. This case is not over. Kouri Richins has vowed to appeal, and that process has already begun. When developments surface, I will cover them. If this is the first time you have heard this story, and a lot of people are finding it right now, Given how recently the sentencing happened, drop a comment below and tell me what point in this video changed how you saw the case. I read every one. If you want to be here when the appeal coverage drops, subscribe. I will not waste your time when I come back to this. For Eric Richins and his 3 sons, this one mattered.
Dad died. Kouri would put us in the basement while she was with the neighbor. I felt scared because I thought something really bad was happening again. She would take me to places that smelled really bad. Everything she did made me feel uncomfortable. When someone talks about Kouri, it makes me feel hateful and ashamed. She took away my dad. I want her to go to prison forever. If she got out, I would be so scared, really mad, and I wouldn't want to go with her anywhere. Once she is gone, I will feel happy, and I will feel safer and relaxed, and trust people more.
You took away my dad for no reason other than greed, and you only cared about yourself and your stupid boyfriends. You were not caring and watching over me and my brothers. You were not concerned about our health. You made us watch videos of children starving in war areas. You wanted to scare us into eating something that wasn't cooked. You wouldn't let our dog outside, and then the dog would pee inside. You created this problem, then you would smack my dog on the head as hard as you could. You wouldn't let me put my kitten in the garage for safety at night, and we found it eaten by raccoons the next day. You wouldn't let us turn on and use the heater lamp for the chickens and bunnies, and they froze to death. You made me paranoid about sleeping on my dad's side of the bed by saying I might die or get harmed when I was just trying to be close to my dad after you killed him. I don't want you out of jail because I will not feel safe if you are out. You have never said sorry for anything that you have done to me and my brothers. I don't want you to hurt anyone again.
Kouri was always drunk or gone. I was always locked in my room. I can't remember, but I am pretty sure the lock was on the outside. Kouri threatened she would kill my lizard because we didn't want to watch some weird show with her. I was sleeping, and then I went to get a drink of water, then went back to bed. And when I woke up shaking and Bailey called the ambulance and they came and I couldn't talk for a while, I think Kouri had something to do with it because she didn't call the ambulance, she called Bailey, and Bailey called the ambulance. At the ER, Kouri resisted to have my blood drawn, and kids who usually have this kind of seizure is when they are a few months old to a year old. I learned later that Kouri bought more fentanyl and had it in the house when this happened. I think this is what happened. She did what she did to my dad in the living room. Ash would bring me food. Kouri would lock me up if I told her she was drunk. This happened pretty much daily. I feel angry that she locked me in my room. I am angry almost all my animals died. I am angry she threatened to kill them. I am angry she killed my dad. Kouri is always drunk. I want the judge to know my dad was a good person and I miss my dad. I miss my dad, but I do not miss how my life used to be. I don't miss Kouri, I will tell you that.
Kouri's selfishness and cruelty did not end with Eric's murder. In the time after Eric's death, Kouri has done nothing but isolate, manipulate, deceive, and do harm to those boys. Almost immediately after Eric died, she cut them off completely from our family, from Eric's family. That isolation was calculated and strategic. Kouri used the boys as bargaining chips with my dad. She repeatedly threatened not to let him see his grandsons unless he could convince me, as Eric's trustee, of his trust to capitulate to her legal demands and give her all the trust assets. While isolating the boys, Kouri provided them with false and harmful information about me and my family. When DCFS took custody of the boys following Kouri's arrest and asked where they would like to go, they expressed fear of my family. The fear was not based on reality, but on what they had been told. Please do not let my brother's life be worth nothing more than a 25-year punishment. Please do not leave those boys to wonder whether Kouri might track them or their children down in the future. Please do not create a possibility for Kouri to endanger Eric's boys, my daughters, my family, or anyone else ever again. Please sentence Kouri to a life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Not changing course, but doubling down, preparing to try again, and ultimately completing the act through the administration of poison. And for what? Money. All for pecuniary gain. Accordingly, Ms. Richins, based on your conviction on count 1, first-degree felony aggravated murder, The court hereby sentences you to life without parole. Ms. Lewis, Ms. Nestor.
Your Honor, we anticipate filing a motion for a new trial and would like a date set. We have a substantial record in this case. We will file a notice of appeal of the conviction of the sentence and ask that everything be stayed pending a motion for a new trial as we're entitled to do under Rule 4B. Excuse me, but we think we need sufficient time to file a motion for a new trial based on the substantial record that exists in this case, longer than the typical 14 days, because this is not only the trial itself, but the years of litigation and motion practice that preceded the trial. We were hoping that we could get an agreed deadline of 90 days to file a motion for new trial, mainly because for half of June I'm out of the country and for half of July Lewis is out of the country. Normally we would ask for 60, but there's going to be a month in there where both of us aren't available. So we're asking for 90 days.